Hey, good morning, everybody, and welcome. Welcome to Invisible Condition. It's not all in your head. I'm your host, Jeff Pearson, and we want everybody to know with an invisible condition, anybody that has an invisible condition, we want you to know that you do have a voice, you have a community, and you are never alone. And I am very excited for my next guest. Today's guest is awesome. At 40 years old, Jason was a successful business executive, right? Great, awesome career going great. At the same time, weighed 320 pounds. He finally acknowledged that his health was in urgent need of attention, which is good because that's a good spot to realize that. But felt despair and anger because he thought it was too late to change, right? Because when you've got that kind of weight gain, it's just tough. And anybody else listening can relate to that? We'll see. We'll talk about it. He decided to commit his health and to commit to his health. And after much trial and error, he developed the 4E system of weight loss for men like himself who needed to lose some weight and have a new solution to this whole weight gain, weight loss thing. Jason's system is an innovative approach that encourages not only weight loss, but also the elimination of root causes, which I love because that's what we're all about around here. We love the treatment of things to get rid of things you don't want, but what's the root cause? And so I love that. Jason's now fit and healthy at 200 pounds in peak physical condition, and he's dedicated to helping men like himself transform their health and their lives. And he's the best-selling author of Keeping It Off. Love that title. That's perfect. All right, here we go. Let's bring Jason on here and see what's going on. Good morning, Jason. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Jeff. It's great to be here. Thanks for that great intro too. I just hearing that, it actually made me sad to remember where I was and the things that I was going through. And just for the record, now I'm 54, so it's a little ways back now to being 40 years old. But yeah, I feel great. The life is so different, and as you were saying, the root causes, that was the key thing to look into, right? It was the invisible condition that was behind all of these things that manifest themselves physically, and it led to an incredible journey for sure.
Yeah, no, I bet it's that. I mean, 14 years later, here we are. But yeah, it's always a journey. It can't be, especially with stuff like that, with weight loss. You can't just snap your fingers, get on the magic diet or the magic pill, and expect it to change long term. It might change for a little bit, but you're probably going to be right back in the throes of it, 6 months later or less. So yeah, I love that you've got a good method for it that helps people a long-term solution, right? So, and by the way, I just heard that horn. We're going to talk about this for a second. So Jason, where are you right now? Where are you in the world right now?
Right now, I'm just south of Valletta, which is the capital of Malta in the Mediterranean, just south of Sicily.
Nice. So it's a tiny little place, and he's in a tiny little place, a tiny little apartment in the town, and he's got a window open, and so there's little, in the little European towns, the little trucks drive by and stuff. So if we hear a honk or whatever, we'll just imagine ourselves in that spot and go, oh, how nice would that be?
Well, thankfully, it's a little later in the day here now on the European time, so there's a little bit less of that now. The heat is usually around about between 85 and 90 Fahrenheit during the day. So usually towards the end of the day, people have run out of steam a little and tend to quieten down a little bit. They'll come out later in the evening, like 7, 8 p.m. is usually when people venture out just to begin to start having dinner. And it's just a beautiful place with the lights and the boats in the harbor and just these old world place with old world values. It's sort of untouched by modern society, and it's just a beautiful, serene place to be staying right now.
I love it, man. I've heard of Malta, and I've never really thought about going there, but it's the way the more you talk about it, the more I feel like I need to just go buy a ticket and just check it out. It sounds amazing. And by the way, if anybody out there is watching that is having questions about, and we'll get into this more, but I wanted to address it right now. If you have questions about weight loss, especially the guys out there, husbands or brothers or dads or whatever that's having trouble with weight loss, reach out. And Jason is an amazing resource. We're going to put here, I'm just going to do it right now. This is his QR code. This will lead you to a place where you can ask him questions. You can comment on if you're watching on Facebook or YouTube, you can comment and we'll go back and look at those and he can answer questions or anything. You don't have to be too super specific if you don't want to, but we want you to get help if you need help with this. So that's why we're here. So anyway, just wanted to throw that out there. Don't be shy. Reach out if you need to. So what was some of the most, like, we're talking about conditions that are invisible, right? And this is definitely one of them. What was one of the biggest invisible, like, emotional challenges you faced during, like, when your weight was increasing, like as you were on your way to that 300 plus pounds?
Yeah, that was definitely something I really struggled with for a long time, because I thought it was just all physical. It was just what I could see. I could see myself gaining. I could see the clothes not fitting anymore. There were the other mental things, like the mental lethargy and some of the emotions, the despair. And as you said earlier, you just feel like you're running out of time and it's too late to do it. And you'll get people saying, oh, well, it's your genetics, or it's this, or it's that, it's hereditary, you can't do anything about it. But I knew that wasn't true, because I'd find diets and I would stick to them, because I'd be determined for a period of time anyway. I'd have that motivation and I would lose weight. But then I'd very quickly gain it back again. And sometimes you just gain it back and extra as well. And then that just, it just gets you on this cycle, and then you just feel like giving up. And it was only a few years ago, really, that I realized there has to be something more behind this, because I can lose weight. That part actually isn't hard once you've tried all the different diets and fitness routines and everything that I've tried. I know lots of different ways you can do that, and lots of different tools and strategies that really work. But it's the long term, as you said, that's really the problem. And I realized one day, and I could almost pinpoint the day, it was only about 3 years ago. It was guilt. Guilt was the real problem. I was carrying guilt that was leading me to carry physical weight, to maybe try to hide the guilt, or because I didn't feel worthy because I carried this guilt. And so, I maybe comfort ate or drank or whatever it happened to be. And it's kind of interesting, the way I found this guilt was I'd been having this same dream for 40 years.
Whoa.
40 years, since I was about 13 years old. Must have been about 12 years old, I think. Yeah. And in this dream, it was always the same theme. I had all of this money. You know, you see in the movies, you get these big fat wads of money,
Yeah.
like the folded up ones, not the ones that are the full length
Yeah.
with the band around it, the ones where it's folded over so it's in sort of a square bundle. I had all these square bundles of money, and it must have been thousands of dollars. And at the beginning of this dream, it was always exciting that I had all this money.
Yeah.
But the dream would very quickly shift, and there were people after me because I'd stolen this money. In the dream, it was clear to me that I had stolen this money, and I could feel the guilt of that in the dream, and I was panicked. And I thought, I have to hide this money. In the dream, I was always trying to hide the money somewhere. I was burying it. I was driving to get away. One time, Billy Crystal was driving the car that I was getting away in. I don't know why Billy Crystal was there,
Wow.
but he was. And so there'd be lots of different variables in the dream, but the theme was always the same. I had stolen this money, and I felt this guilt. Now, here's the thing. I was thinking about that one day because the dream, I'd have it sometimes once a month, sometimes there'd be a gap for a while. I had this dream and I was talking to someone about it, and they asked me some questions, and I realized when I was 12 years old, I did steal money from my parents. And I did get caught. And at the time I got caught, it was a big emotional release, and I was crying, and my parents or my mum was the one that caught me, was disappointed. But I also felt a big weight off my shoulders. I felt this relief that I'd been caught because it stopped it from happening. I never did that again. But then I realized that she didn't know that I did it many times. She caught me the one time. We never talked about it at all. So she thought it was one time done, and I knew that there was more. And I thought, I have to call her and I have to tell her, Mum, I did this more times than you know. And I need you to know that because I'm carrying this. I know I'm carrying it because I'm dreaming about it. So I called her and I told her. And I said, Mum, I would go to that jar that was up in the back of your closet, and I would take some money, and I was skipping school and playing video games, and this was like the early 80s, right?
Yeah.
And she said, what are you talking about? I don't know anything about a jar in the back of the closet. And I said, but that's where I was taking it from. And she said, well, I caught you taking money from my purse. And I said, well, that was one time. This was all before that. And she said, well, that must have been your dad's money. And I realized, and they never talked about it either. So I'd been doing this, taking this money from my dad. He never knew about it. And I suddenly realized, this is why I'm carrying this guilt. I need to get forgiveness from him.
Yeah.
And so it took me a couple of weeks actually to work up the courage, even though, I'm an adult, but I was still afraid to do it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So thankfully he called me about 2 weeks later and saved me. And so we just chatted about general things. He's in Australia and he grew up in Malta. That's why I'm here actually.
Nice.
His family was evacuated during World War II when it was being bombed. And the family moved to Australia. So I told him, I said, I've got something important to talk to you about, Dad, and this is serious. And I told him what I'd done. And he tried to sort of brush it off and say, oh, I know, it was no big deal. That was the family's money. It's okay. And I said, no, Dad, I knew it was wrong, right? This was wrong that I did this. And I really need you to understand that this was serious. And I know that, and I really want your forgiveness. He teased me a little bit saying, well, I'm not sure if I can forgive you. And I'm like, come on, Dad, this is really serious. So he admitted that he felt disappointed, but he did forgive me. And we had this great conversation afterwards. It felt like actually that it brought us closer together. He's now in his late 80s. And anyway, we got off the phone and I just felt, I feel better. I feel this weight off my shoulders. I think I've dealt with this. And I thought that was it. It's now done. But within a few moments, I started feeling this this wave coming up from my lower abdomen, like when you see a little kid crying, but they're trying not to cry, and they do the like that. And this wave came up right from my hips, from my lower abdomen, and like several waves came up, and I was sobbing and I was crying, and I was confused and I was embarrassed. Like, what's going on? Like, I didn't understand what was happening. And eventually, after 4 or 5 of these waves came up, and I was crying, and it was like gut wrenching, like the stomach muscles were sore, and then it finally went away. I was a little bit afraid because I'm, what's happening to me? It finally went away, and then I realized now it is gone. Now it is done. And then I also realized I had been carrying that guilt around my waist physically. I was physically carrying the guilt in my body, and it was physically doing something to me. And that's where I used to carry all of this weight, this extra 120 pounds that I carried. Now, I can tell you now that it's been years now, a few years, I've not had that dream once again.
That's amazing. I love that because, there is so much more to it than just weight. I mean, it's almost like you peeled back the onion, right? And there's the next layer, and there's the next layer, and you didn't know when it was going to end, So, and thankfully it did, and you're being able to. So you haven't had that dream since. And how many years has it been since you've had it?
It would have to be about 3 years since I've had that dream.
Oh, that's beautiful.
And I was having it ongoing for 40 years.
Yeah. Man, it's crazy when you think about how simple it is to get to, for the talking to somebody and getting that forgiveness it makes that big of a difference, right? Like, how can that possibly be the root cause of this? But that's a beautiful story. I love that. And so I'm not sure where to go from that. You know what? I think this is a really good spot to take a break. Let's take a breath here and do a commercial break for a couple minutes. And everybody out there, let that story sink in, because that's an amazing story, and I'm kind of letting it sink in myself, because that's beautiful. And then on the other side of the break, we're going to talk about how that shifted. I mean, that shifted everything for you, and then you started, and then you developed the 4E system of weight loss, and got your book and did the thing. We're gonna talk about all that that shift that happened on the other side of the break. So everybody stick around. This is going to be the story continues. There's more to it. So don't go anywhere. And we will see you in just a couple of minutes. Stay right there.
In a world where office workers typically receive 130 daily emails and have an 8-second attention span, CoreCentrica, with her 4 decades of international marketing experience, has partnered with the Learning Code Institute and their 30 years of neuroscientific research. Together, we are crafting unique messaging strategies that resonate, connect, and ultimately convert our target audiences. CoreCentrica, where award-winning creativity and disruptive neuroscience come together. Scan this code now, or call and click, and let us show you how CoreCentrica's partnership with the Learning Code Institute is influencing how businesses connect with their audience, foster engagement, and achieve conversions.
Hey there. You know, every time someone comes into your business or website and uses their card to pay, a percentage of that gets folded back into the system. But it can go to Hydro with Hope instead. If you'd like your business to support us rather than feed back into the system, scan the QR code and we'll show you how to do that while saving your business money.
Hi, I'm Sarah Stockham, and I'm host of Simply Sarah. Join me Thursdays at 3 p.m. Pacific on the Achieve TV network for the best energetic tools to elevate your amazing life right here on E360 TV.
Hey, everybody, before we bring Jason back, I just want to take just 60 seconds here to talk about our friends at The Porch. The Porch is a coffee space that was created for communities to converge. They're in Portland, Oregon. Brett and Molly Pryor are running this amazing organization. It's a nonprofit that seeks to provide training and opportunity to those who are sometimes overlooked in our community. You know who I'm talking about. Coffee has become for the Porch a vessel that crosses all bounds, and it enables us to preserve dignity through the act of generous hospitality and building relationships with our neighbors. And so you too could be a part of this amazing mission that Brett and Molly are on with The Porch. Scan this QR code. We made it super easy for you. Scan the QR code. It'll go to theporchcoffeepdx.com, and you can order this amazing coffee. I have a couple of bags back here. I am a coffee nerd. I will be the first to admit that I am a coffee nerd. And so I really like really good coffee, and this stuff is incredible. And so if you are a coffee nerd like me, or you just really like really good coffee, scan the QR code. They deliver anywhere in the US. Sorry, anybody outside the US, they're working on it. Anywhere in the US, you can have this coffee roasted fresh and delivered to you. So, all right, check it out. You got about 2 seconds left. I'm taking down the QR code. Okay, there we go. All right, everybody, let's bring Jason back on. All right, Jason, man, your story is incredible. And if you haven't, okay, you guys are gonna have to, if you weren't here for the first segment, you're gonna have to go back and check it out, because he's got it's a good story. It's a good story. And so what we want to talk about in this particular segment is what was the turning point that made you decide that was like, this is okay, that's it. I'm out. This is what we're doing. And you developed the program, the 4E system of weight loss, that helped you.
Yeah, for sure. I'd been working on a program for weight loss for a long time. Because I'd gone up and down for so many years, I'd built a lot of tools, a lot of tips, and developed some strategies, some programming that made a lot of sense for somebody that wanted to lose weight, wanted to get back in shape, wanted to regain their physical health. This element about guilt, it blew me away, because I thought this element is maybe more important about what's going on inside, behind the scenes, than the physical side. The physical side was just the visual manifestation of what was going on behind. So that, of course, led me, I had to do way more research on, I looked more into dreams and recurring dreams and what they mean. I uncovered more of my own recurring dreams that I had to deal with. There's really cool stuff online that you can find about recurring dreams, and I don't think we'd have time to go into that on this episode today, but possibly we could another time.
Sure.
But I realized that, talking with my own father and getting his forgiveness, it wasn't all that hard to do. Sometimes it can be more difficult. But I also realized through going through this process a few times was that he was carrying something as well, and he didn't even realize that he was. Maybe 30, 40 years ago, he'd noticed money missing from his little jar and had always wondered about it or had some suspicion about it, and it was never resolved. So he carried it all those years as well, even though it may be way back in the back recesses of the mind. Yeah. So I realized as I was going through, I found a childhood friend that I got asked for his forgiveness because I did something to him. And I went to other people and said, I need to forgive you for something you did to me. And I realized that carrying the guilt is just as bad as someone carrying the unforgiveness. Yeah. On the other side. The whole forgiveness thing, it impacts both people negatively. No matter which side you're on, you're both carrying something. Yeah. And so I realized I had to look into this deeper, of course. I'm a data guy, so I just go into things as deep as I can. I research them. I look at scriptures, I look at science, I look everywhere I can. Yeah. And I realized I just had to look at the word forgive. forgiving, what does that actually mean? And I realized it means I am for giving this to God. And so I am in favor of letting this go and giving this situation to God. God tells us that we should not judge. When we carry unforgiveness for somebody, we are judging them.
Mhm.
And they may not even know that we are doing that. And I think that while we carry that unforgiveness, until we release that, they cannot get their forgiveness because we are holding it. God doesn't jump into our lives and push his way into our lives. He's a
Mhm.
patient God and he waits for us to ask him. And soon as I say, God, I am forgiving this to you, it doesn't mean that I'm letting that person off the hook. And I think that's a lot of reason too why some people, they don't want to forgive somebody. They feel like if they forgive somebody, they are telling that person, oh, it's okay what you did, don't worry about it, it's all good. And they think somehow they're getting let off the hook. Where I think actually the opposite is true. If I forgive you, you now are dealing with God directly.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
if you think me not forgiving you was a bad thing, now you're going to have to deal with your creator on that. And so this forgiveness thing, I just became a forgiveness junkie. Who do I need to forgive? Who needs to forgive me? I'd go looking up people that I worked with, that I had conflict with in the past, and I'd just message them out of nowhere. And this forgiveness thing, there would always be a positive return from them. They'd either say, you know what, I'm going to go and find people to forgive myself now, and just seeing that chain reaction that would happen. And of course, I'd lighten my load more and more and more every time that I did it. And of course, the more you practice something like that, the more comfortable you get in doing
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. Well, and it's because I've worked with somebody that was amazing with that kind of thing too. It was a counselor years and years ago, and they had a forgiveness prayer that she introduced me to, and it's basically teaching you to, like, this could work with anybody, whether they're living or not, because sometimes you don't get that chance before they pass away, right? But you still want that forgiveness. And so you take it on yourself and then you give it to God. And that's the ultimate forgiveness, because if you're seeking forgiveness, the other person probably hasn't thought about it in years. It's probably not bothering them as much as it's bothering you. So forgiveness is mostly, correct me if I'm wrong, mostly about you releasing it from your mind and your heart so that you can live better, right? I mean, it's not about the other person, it's more about you
Mhm.
in the forgiveness. So
Well, they can get just as much benefit from it, and they might not have thought about it, and it may be buried inside them as well. And you bring that out, and I've had that happen with people where they didn't think there was anything wrong or anything to forgive, but then they started thinking about it, and they realized that there was, and then that led them on a journey for their own healing as well. There's an old quote, and I don't know if I get this exactly right, but it's kind of humorous. It says, unforgiveness is like drinking poison and waiting for the other person to die.
right. Yeah.
And
Exactly.
it's the perfect illustration of, it's you that it's harming, right? You feel
Yeah.
somehow that by not forgiving them, you're somehow punishing them for something they did to you. And you're right, they may never actually be feeling anything at all or even be aware that anything is going on. But if you bring that up to them, they might even, hey, I didn't even realize this. I'm so sorry.
Right.
It might have been a miscommunication.
Yeah. Yeah. It could be anything. I mean, it could be something really small or something really big and obvious, but it doesn't matter. It's still forgiveness, and you still feel that angst, no matter how big or how small. So, well, so can you just explain maybe the core principles of the 4E, like your system there, because it all works together with what you're talking about here. So what are the core principles of the 4E system, and how does it differ from other, like, everybody's trying to lose weight, right? Everybody anybody in their 40s, 50s, 60s, right? They're like, oh, I got to lose 20 pounds. But there's so many methods out there. How is yours different?
Sure. Well, to start simply, I guess the 4 E's. The first E is evaluate. We can't really go anywhere. We need to find out what's going on, and we go through some processes where we can actually find out what is going on. What have you tried before? Sometimes some of these long buried issues might come out. So we spend it's generally an 8-week program, but I mean there's no need to restrict people to that, because things happen in people's lives. They may go off on some big journey of forgiveness all over the place and disappear for a while before they come back again. It may take them places they never thought they would go. So that's the first E, is evaluate. The second E, again, 1 week, that's envision. And the envisioning part, I will come back to that in a bit more detail, because that is one of the key important parts. After that, there is 5 weeks of execute, because we need to execute a way of eating. We have to execute a way of exercising. We have to execute a way to find the root causes, dig deeper into them. We have to find a way to get people's self-esteem and confidence back.
Yeah.
Right. So these things are important but they're all things that take action. We have to learn all these different tools. Some of the tools are tools that I've found for myself that I'm sharing. Some of them I've developed myself, and sometimes it's just the combination of the way I put them together that makes them more interesting and maybe a little unique. One of the key ones in there is about the link between motivation and discipline, and how you can use that combination to basically defeat procrastination, which stops people from going after eliminating their guilt. And then the last E is the evolve E. That's the very last week, where we can sit down and we can say, here's where you were when we began this journey. Here's where you are now. These are all the successes. Sometimes you don't feel you've gotten good success until you look back and see where you were. And so maybe there's reasonable weight loss. Maybe there's improvement in physique and energy. Maybe you've eliminated some of your guilt that you were carrying. And like you mentioned earlier about peeling the onion, sometimes something big is covering in front of a whole bunch of other things that down the road, you might actually find something bigger, but there's layers that you have to get to. Like, how deep is it buried? If you're digging a hole in the backyard, you'll find the first layer, but then you might get down deeper and you find something that's been there for longer.
Yeah.
And so then we can evaluate, where do you still need help? What still needs to happen for you to move forward? What habits do you still need to build to make sure you will get that long-term success? And then that way we can build a plan that they can take forward. It's okay to get to the end of 8 weeks and say, look at all the stuff you've achieved. Great seeing you. Good work. And bye for now. I would be afraid that they're going to go back, because I went back so many times.
Yeah.
And so whether there's a link to keep a process going, to keep an accountability cycle going, that's an important one there to get the longevity of those results. And so back into that envision one, that was one that was really, really important, because when you ask some people what do they really want out of their life, they're not really sure how to answer. Sometimes it's, you have a good job and you have a family and you're a good person, and that's good. And then you can retire and play golf and hang out with some friends and go to the beach more often or something like that. But then you step back and think, is that all there is? Is that enough? And at my age, when I got into my 50s, I thought, I feel like I should be doing something more. I feel like there's something better that I should be doing. I'd accomplished a lot in business, and I'd had sporting achievements and all these other things. But I thought, no, there's something didn't feel quite right. And so finding out what that is, you can do a lot of brainstorming on what some of those things could be. Sometimes they're things you wanted to be as a child. Sometimes you thought of something you wanted to be, but you thought, well, I can't be that. That's too big. It's not for me. But maybe it is. Maybe it is. And then I started looking at this from the perspective of God. And I thought, okay, what is God's plan for me, and how do I find out what that is? Has he presented it to me before and I've rejected it? And I picture this scenario as, why would anybody do that? And I picture, God comes along and says, hey, Jason, got this great plan for you. And I say, oh, no, thanks. I think I'm going to go do this other thing. This other thing sounds pretty cool. And God's just, okay. Now, God already knows when you're going to come back.
Right.
So you go do that other thing, and maybe you have some success for a while, and maybe it feels good for a while. But at some point, it doesn't anymore.
Yeah.
And for whatever reason, things aren't working out because you're not following that plan anymore. You're not on the safe road that God has prepared for you. So you come back, and God maybe says, hey, Jason, got this great plan for you. What do you think? And maybe you cycle through that a few times, just like I did through my health struggles.
Yeah.
But eventually, I think we'll all come back to the point where we'll say, I'm ready for the plan that you have for me. And then we realize at that point, it wasn't that I was rejecting God's plan. It wasn't that I just felt like I wanted to do this or I wanted to do that. It's just that God needed to prepare me to be ready to take on the plan that he had for me at the time that I would be ready to do that. He already knows, right?
Yeah.
He already knows what that plan is.
There's pruning to do, right? You got some stuff that you need to get rid of before you can. Maybe that's what it is. Maybe you've got some stuff in your life that you need to get rid of, that God knows you need to get rid of, and you've kind of stalled on that. And so, right, the pruning process of, and then you're ready, yeah, no, that's amazing. That's so cool. So given that process, now that that's amazing. What if you came across somebody, if you were talking to somebody or they came to you, what advice what would you tell somebody if they're in the depths of despair? Maybe they're angry, maybe they're depressed or whatever about their current health situation. I'm 100 pounds overweight, or I can't stop eating, whatever what would be that first thing that you would tell them?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Because if you hit them with the deep stuff right away, if you go to them and say, oh, you know what, you've probably got some really deep root causes there that you need to uncover. And, you've probably got to go and forgive some people, or you've got to go and confess something to someone. Then you'll be on the road. It's going to be really difficult to get through to them because they're not in that place at that time.
Yeah.
Because I've been there, I know what that place feels like, and I know how I would respond. I would just reject it. I'm not ready to hear that. But what I might be ready for is something small, something easy that I can try. And if I get some success from that, I may then start to get a little bit of an appetite building for a little bit more. And once there's enough of that, then you get some credibility built up with somebody. You get some trust built up with somebody. Hopefully you're getting to know them a little bit deeper. Then you can start to broach something and say, you know what, there's bigger things. I do have one thing actually that I do get people to do, and I share this one all the time. It's a just totally physical exercise thing, right? And I got this from my cousin in Australia. So I've got these two cousins that they were karate champions back in the 80s, and they both run karate schools, and their students win gold medals at everything. Like one of them, his son. So my second cousin, he'll be in these Olympics coming up.
Oh wow!
In a few weeks, and he's 20. I think he'll be 20 for these Olympics, and so that's how dedicated they are to their karate. And so I was in Australia visiting, and it was the Christmas break had just started. So Christmas there is their summer. So that's their big break, maybe 1.5 to 2 months break from school, and a lot of people take their vacation time then.
Mm-hmm.
And we were talking, and we're at this barbecue in somebody's backyard, and a lot of his students were there at this barbecue, and he was looking around at them, and he was frowning, and he was yelling at a few of them.
Oh.
And I said, what's going on? What's the problem? And he said, oh, they're all eating and drinking, and they're all going to come back. They're all going to come back to karate after the break, and they're all going to be overweight and unhealthy, and I'm going to have to get them all back into shape again. And I said, yeah, I guess I can see that. What do you do? And he said, well, I gave him this challenge to do while they're away. And I was intrigued by it. I'd already lost weight for the first time or the second time by then, so weight loss was already an interest of mine. And he said, well, I tell them they have to do 100 push-ups every day. And I thought about it, and I thought, well, and I said, in the whole day, like 100 just for the whole day? And he said, yeah. And I said, well, it's not that bad. Like, can you spread them out across the day? And he said, yeah, you can do that. And I said, well, it doesn't seem that bad, right? That hard if you're spreading them out through the day. And he said, yes, however, the first set of push-ups that you do for the day has to be the most you can do in one set. So let's say that you can do 15 in one set. And then for the rest of the day, you do 5, 5, 5, 5, 5 till you reach 100. And then you get your 100. As long as you get the 100, you've met the commitment to this.
Mm-hmm.
But then you can never do less than 15 in the first set of the day. And then you have to slowly build up. So now you're doing 20 in the first set. And then after a while, you do 30. And the goal was at the end of that whole summer break, they had to do all 100 push-ups in one set.
Wow.
One set. Now, they don't have to be, chest to the floor push-ups. Whatever you can manage. The goal is to get there to 100. And so I thought, you know what? I like that. I'm going to start doing that. And I get everybody to do that now. So I now do, for over a year now, I do 120 because I think I've got to do more than I ask everybody else to do, right? So I do 120 push-ups every morning, all in one set, nonstop.
Wow.
And I can tell you the way that makes me feel now, not how it makes me feel immediately after, but about 30 seconds or so after, my heart rate is jumped up, my blood flow is just flowing, my brain is clear. I feel that my metabolism is kick-started for the day. It starts moving again. I feel like I've done something. I can see the difference over time. I can see the difference in my chest, in my shoulders, in my lats, in my core as well. Because while you're doing it, you're in a plank position as well. So you get a full core workout out of it. Mm-hmm. And so I won't miss that at all now. In any day at all, no matter how I'm feeling. If I'm feeling sick, maybe I'll just do them later in the day. But I just say, look, just try that. Just do one set of push-ups, as many as you can do. Start doing that every day and just spread it out over the day. And the feedback that I get from people, they say, oh, the first day I only got 70 because I forgot, and then they'll message and say, I'm up to 20 now in my first set, and they feel great. And what it does is it builds their confidence as well. Yeah. They can tell the difference in the strength that they're building, and they start to realize, I can do this. I can do something about what's happening to me. But there's also a thing in the background that I don't disclose to them, but they get this over time. It's the core of building a habit.
Yes.
They've committed to doing the same thing every day. And once they get past, let's say 30 days, 40 days, whatever it is now become a habit, and they like to do it. And if they don't do it, they feel bad. And that's one of my core tenets is how to get them to start building habits. I've got lots of different exercise to help them figure out ways to make it easier for them to build a new habit and eliminate a bad habit, sometimes flipping the old for the new. And so that's the simple. That's a longer story to explain it, but that's one simple thing that you can get somebody to do.
That's amazing. I love that because it's true. A little bit at a time, and then before you know it, it's a habit, and you almost can't not do it. So yeah, that's awesome. I can't wait. I can't wait to. I don't think I've ever done 100 push-ups in one set in my life. So that would be really cool. Even to just say I've accomplished it, just to say, yeah, I've built up and I did it, and now I can do it anytime, So that's really cool. Well, I tell you what, this is another great place for a break. We're gonna just go to a couple commercials here but stick around because we're gonna talk about on the other side of the break, we're gonna talk about hope and how hope plays a huge role in all of this. And so don't go anywhere. Stick around, and we'll have more with Jason in just a couple minutes.
Does your to-do list have you feeling stressed? Does your list include tasks like responding to email and phone calls, collecting forms and paperwork, and sending quotes and invoices? Have you been neglecting posting updates to your social media accounts, email newsletters, or content on your website? Maybe you need help to get digitally organized. I'm Selena, one of the owners at Office Mercenary, and we're a US-based virtual assistant agency. We can take care of all of these tasks and more so you can get back to focusing on the things you love about your business. Our team is happy to work with you and your individual needs. So schedule a call with us, bring your to-do list, and stop doing the tedious tasks.
Hi everyone, I'm Andy.
And I'm Minna.
We're the hosts of Chronically Healthy Life.
Join us Fridays at 7 p.m. Central Time on Vitality TV to see how we flip the idea of chronic on its head and create chronic health in our bodies, minds, finances, and relationships right here on E360 TV.
All right. Welcome back, everybody. Welcome back, Jason. Man, that story again, guys, you're going to have to watch the replay to catch it if you're just coming in now, but that story was amazing. We might have to do a second episode because I feel like we've got so much more. We've just like scratched the surface with a couple things. So you might see Jason on the schedule again a little bit down the road, but for now, I want to talk about something that I'm sure is built into everything you're doing, Jason. It's built into it's in my DNA, man. I can't express how important this is, but I like to ask everybody on the show one question, and just see what happens, because the answer is always good. I always love hearing the answer. So on, in the throes of all this weight and going up and going down and all the things, and even now, when you have a day that's not like ideal, right? How do you maintain hope on those hard days?
Yeah, that's a tough question to answer because it definitely feels like that sometimes it's not there. Mm-hmm. I think it just gets buried behind other things. Sometimes it just gets forgotten about. Sometimes I think it's not a tangible thing. Anytime something goes wrong, it seems like we lose hope. Mm-hmm. How do we grasp even to define it? It's just a faith in something good is going to happen, right? Yep. And we can spend years and years trying to reach that all by ourselves. And you just reach a point where you look back and you recognize that all of those times that you've tried to do it all by yourself, it just hasn't been working. Mm-hmm. Those are all the times that have led to a lack of hope. And so for me, of course, the only thing that I could end up doing was just to turn to God and get that hope rekindled. You know, the spirit of truth within me. The Holy Spirit is our comforter. It's our counselor, and it's always telling us things. But I think over time we learn to sort of turn the volume down. But when we turn that volume down, we turn the volume of hope down at the same time, knowing that there's someone walking with us, and all we have to do is accept. It's just, and recognizing the truth of that. When you do that, like, hope just thrives. It just blossoms, and then all you want to do, then you just want to share it with everybody else that you possibly can.
Nice. Yeah, it's true. Once you've got it, once that hope is in you, man, you just want to share it. That's true. That's true. Especially when maybe it's new, right? Like you haven't had it, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, you can't help but share it, right? Oh, I love that. So how do people, how is the easiest way for people to reach you? I mean, we've got your QR code here. Is that the go-to, or what's the best way to?
That'll take people to my website, and through the website you can book a call with me. We can you can book a call with me, and we can sit for an hour and have a conversation like this and talk about hope, and talk about guilt, and talk about forgiveness, and talk about 100 push-ups if we want to. And so that is an easy way to do that. My full listing of my 4E program is on that website as well. I am on social media as well. I'm not posting as much as I used to, because I prefer to try to reach people more like this, where I can have bigger, broader conversations that are just off the cuff and real, and show that to people, and have them see something in more detail than a 2-minute video on Instagram or something like that. And I've got a bunch of those. I'll be out hiking somewhere, and I'll just have an idea to share something, and I'll post that. So I think on Facebook and on Instagram, I'm Jason L. Shembry. I had to put my middle initial L in the middle of that. And the only reason I did that is because there's a famous photographer in Australia named Jason Shembry, and he's taken up all the Jason Shembry space online. And so someone goes looking for me, and they end up going to a fashion photography page instead. So I put the L in the middle there. So that's an easy way to reach me. Yep, Jason.
Awesome.
That's perfect.
And that's on Facebook or Instagram. You're the same name. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Awesome.
Yeah, for sure. I do have a private Facebook group called Keeping It Off, where I share some of my tips and some of my videos, and maybe try to get some engagement going on different concepts around this. I'll probably get back to doing more on that when I can, but there's a lot of time that goes into trying to share messaging with people, trying to reach people that are something more than just a quick entertainment, or just a quick little tip that might get forgotten in a little while. But
sure.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. Well, guys, I hate to say it, but we are about out of time. So we might need to do this again, because there is more to talk about. I know there's more to talk about, because I know we didn't get to everything we wanted to today, but so watch out. Maybe he'll be on again in the very near future. So, but go to this QR code and reach out if you have questions. And Jason, in the last, 60 seconds or so, what would you like to leave our audience with today?
I think the main thing is, I know what it feels like when you're in that place, and it's just built up over such a long period of time, and you've tried things and they haven't worked, and you just become more frustrated. Your relationships are suffering, and your marriage with your kids, because you're venting out at them and you don't even understand why. It's just this internal stuff is trying to find its way out, and it's such a terrible place to be. You hate being in that place. Those around you hate you being in that place, and you end up hating yourself for that, but you lash out at others. And I just want people to know, having been there, there is a way out of that. And it does take some work to do it, but it is not complicated. It is fairly simple. And there's lots of help available for that.
Awesome.
I love helping people with that. Having come through that and come out at the end, I just want everybody to be in the place that I'm at now and be able to look back and see that journey.
Yeah.
And so if you feel like you've gotten into that place, even if you just want to have a conversation with me, I don't mind if that's all. A whole bunch of people book calls with me and we just have a conversation like this, and I give you somewhere to start. That would make me so happy to be able to help just with something like that. But just start actually is the name of the first chapter of my book, because just start is all that you need to do. You can't look at the whole broad picture of everything. You have to just start. And sometimes it's just something small, and it just begins what could be the best journey that you've ever taken.
I love it. I love it. Maybe that's what we need to do another show so we can go through your book. We need to do that too. So, and information for that is on that QR code as well, I'm sure. So, but Jason, thank you so much for being here, man. We definitely need to do another show so we can cover the rest of what we need to talk about. But for today, man, I'm so thankful that you were here. Thank you for being so open, and thank you for being here.
Thanks so much, Jeff. It's been a pleasure. I can't believe how fast the time went past. But yeah, I think I'd love to come back and share more with you and with the audience.
Appreciate it. Thank you so much. All right, everybody, man, we are out of time. I hate being out of time, but we're out of time. So join us next show, Tuesday, July 9th at 10 a.m. Mountain Time. And we'll have another amazing guest for you. And I look forward to seeing you then. Till then, have an amazing day. We'll see you next time.